Welcome back, everyone. It's Louisa with a Feel Good Astrology show, and today is Thursday, the 27th of April. This is my last show of this week, coming back to you on Sunday with one of those big lineups where I read 3 different charts for people from this community, for people that want to know a little bit more and kind of put me on the spot. I don't pre-look at them. I just literally put them on the screen and give them a go. So I can see we've got people watching already. Let us know where you're watching from so I can say hello. I always like to say hello. I can see someone's already joining me. Hey, y'all. That's my good friend Shannon from Texas. Hey, Shannon, thank you so much once again for joining us. I really appreciate that. So this week we have been looking very much at the moon signs and how they kind of play in our lives. So we've been really thinking in terms of, first of all, what does the moon represent in our chart? And then from that, noticing that it's to do with our psyche and our emotions and things like that. How is it best expressed through its elements? So, for instance, we've already looked at fire. We looked at that on Monday's show. Then we looked at Earth, where we looked at Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. Then yesterday we were looking at the air signs. And today we're doing the last ones of all, which are the water signs, which I know really, really well because my own moon is in the sign of Pisces. You might find my write-up for the waters aren't so good. And I guess I've got a kind of maybe negative bias towards them. Obviously, I understand it, but I can... maybe I'm super critical. You know how sometimes we're very critical of ourselves and a lot more gushing about other people. You can be the judge of that when you listen in, and you let me know if I'm maybe being a bit unfair. Who knows? And you may well recognize some of these characters as we describe them. Now, I've got a few more people joining us. We've got Colleen giving us a little wave. I'm guessing you're at work right now, right? We've got Stuart who's also known as Gaining Wisdom. Hello, good day to you all. And we've also got Owen Lloyd Martin joining us from the north of Portugal. Hey, Ponta de Lima here. See you and the family soon. Yes, see you tomorrow, brother. So we've got a nice little mix. If you've got any questions as we go through this, then please don't hesitate just to pop them in the chat and I'll include them. Hopefully I won't forget any. I'm usually quite good at them. But before we go any further, let's have a look at the forecast for not just tomorrow, but for the whole weekend. Okay, let's bring that on now. I'm not quite ready. I'm a little bit out of kilter today, to be honest. Right, here we go. Here it comes. We are so close to the weekend now. You can almost taste it. So for Friday the 28th, Saturday the 29th, Sunday the 30th, here's what we can be expecting energetically. So I think that Friday is actually quite an energizing day in terms of generating ideas. We may find that we're a little bit sarcastic, a little bit choppy. Remember, Mercury is still retrograde, so bear that in mind. But there is this sense of excitement building, and there are new ideas coming thick and fast, and if only we could keep up with them, that would be great. We've also got this energy of kind of rebalancing and making good with where we were the day before and the day before that. It feels like we're starting to feel a bit more balanced, a bit more calm, a bit more zen. In fact, we're even starting to talk like a flipping coach. That's good. We've also got this kind of slightly choppier energy later on Friday, where we're a little bit impatient when people are kind of telling us what to do or trying to push us beyond where we're actually comfortable to go. So that's Friday in a nutshell. As we're moving into Saturday, God, I feel like a weather girl. I need actually just to have like something behind me to point at. But anyway, Saturday, the 29th, we've got a lovely trine that we're waking up to between Jupiter and the moon, which is making us feel really generous, really relaxed, really just ready to have a lie in and even booze first thing in the morning. That's not bad, is it? Then the moon goes into the sign of Virgo and we start to think, oh, hang on, what about my figure? I'd rather look nice in a bikini. And so we start getting a bit active. Mars in a sextile to Uranus is really getting us out of our beds into our joggers and wanting to explore the world. It's pretty good, actually. It's quite a good energy, and it will motivate us into the next day, which is Sunday the 30th. Now, we have some really great stuff, but also a bit of a stabilizing factor. The moon in opposition to Saturn can make us feel a little bit out of sorts. It can make us feel a little bit grumpy, a little bit pessimistic, but it's not such a big deal that we can't carry on with life. We might just be a bit quieter than usual. However, we've got this lovely trine with the sun coming. And so, it's almost like it's a fleeting mood, and the sun comes out and we feel a bit better. Like on one of those cloudy days and all of a sudden the cloud breaks, it just feels like there is a chink in that grayness, and we start to cheer up. And then we start to feel a bit more chatty. So my advice for Sunday is talk about it. Call up your bestie, sit down, have a coffee, and chat all for the rest of the day about life, love, and happiness. So anyway, that's my weekend update. Hope you have a good one. Bye for now. It's funny because I recorded those at the beginning of the week, so it's kind of interesting for me to listen into them. Now, while that was on, or while I was on, I was also shuffling some cards to give you a bit of an extra bit of intel. So I picked the Six of Cups for Friday, and I see this very much as well. I mean, it looks quite miserable, actually, doesn't it? And if you know the Mythic Tarot, it's one of those ones that is very much about us being in our emotions, which is funny because we're talking about moon in the water signs today, which is very emotional. But we are absolutely looking back at the past and trying to make sense of it. So yeah, if old wounds are coming up tomorrow, what I would absolutely do is kind of almost do a little ceremony for them. Feel your way through it, give yourself the space to break through. And then Saturday looks a whole lot better. If you're single, it's a fantastic day for feeling the rush of new emotion. I love that so much. But it's very creative. It's a great time to be spending with friends and family, people that you really care about, people that you should probably say, I love you, man. And then on Sunday, a bit like I said, it's time to just chat and hang out with your besties. This is actually quite stabilizing. It's a stabilizing factor. You're feeling like things have actually got off to a good start. There's good energy, and there's a lot of support around. So again, just use all the support at your disposal. I've got a few more messages. So Owen is sharing that he's stargazing tonight, clear skies permitting. I wish you well on that. I've looked at the stars with you, haven't I, once before, and it was such a great evening. You're pointing out I think we were looking at the, what was it? The asteroid shower. I can't remember. You can tell me what they're called because I know you're an astronomer. So, Colleen Murphy, I love your forecast and appreciate you. Thank you. And yes, I'm at work, but sneaking in a break with your show. Gotta like working in the 2020s, right? Yeah, there's we can all use the internet at work. That's fantastic. Iberian FM, phone in. That's my hubby downstairs. Sorry, was watching an old one. What an incredible woman you are. Well, you need to watch in because I'm actually talking about moon in Scorpio today, and that is definitely you. And you're an amazing chap from Owen to my husband. So that's lovely. Okay, so the Love Fest is ongoing. We've got Facebook users saying shared link. Okay, thank you if you shared a link. That's good. But I would like to know who you are and which link it was. Was it one that we wanted to see? Who knows? So anyway, let's have a look at the moon then. This is the last one of the week. And hopefully you'll be a little bit used to how I'm doing this. So let's just take that off. So I'm going to kind of motor through this because, I've been starting from this point. I think it's always good to come back to what the moon is or what it represents in our chart. So like I said, it changes every 2.5 days. So yesterday, actually, when I was talking about the moon, it was actually in the water signs. And I was talking about the air moon signs. And it's funny because the waters do like to communicate and the air do too. So it was a really long extended show yesterday. Today we're in the fire sign. So I think it should be a lot more concise and zippy, The moon is also about our emotions, our psyche, and it really does represent, I think, children, the mother line, the feminine line, everything to do with parenting, but from a more soft, nurturing and yielding perspective, not so much on taking responsibility. That's a whole nother kettle of fish. That's a whole other planet. That's Saturn that we need to be talking about there. So it often shows up family patterns. And throughout the week, we've been talking about different family patterns. Now, I got a lovely message from Shannon, who's actually watching today. And she was talking about how her daughter and son-in-law both have air moon signs. And then two of the grandchildren are both fire. And I was saying, it's funny how family patterns come in with elements at a certain time. In my own family, when my parents are, their star signs are Pisces and Scorpio. My sister and I both have water moons, which I'm talking about today. And we were both quite fed up with the level of emotionalism that we grew up with. And so we both went off in our different ways. And, my sister married into something that just, she married a husband who came from a family that was very earth and air. And later down the line, I met my husband, Carl, who is a Cancer, which is another water sign. And it was funny because the year that Carl came into my family, so he's a water sign, my sister gave birth to a son in the sign of Pisces, and I gave birth to our first child together, was another son that was a Scorpio. So in 1 year, there were 3 new water sign men in our family. And we've since added another one in. We've got another Scorpio as well. So it's like I think at certain times there is a new element added into a family or a new pattern that comes in that, if you look at the astrology, you'll see the patterns and you can work out where the family is going, and what is ready to be explored within that family. So yeah, they definitely show up. It also shows how we can handle our mental health, because our emotions are absolutely linked into what goes on in our head. And it really talks about what we need and what we crave. So let's have a look at the water signs. In fact, before I look at the water signs, let's just quickly consider what it is to experience the water energy. So for instance, is anyone here a water sign? And what's your experience of water? Like, we've spoken about fire, and that's very hot. It's very warm. It's very bright. And when it's in the room. And you kind of know how close you can get to it before you're going to get blasted away. The air element is very kind of light and conceptual. It doesn't like to get too attached. So you may know lots of friends who are like sparkling and colorful and kind of float in and float away. They get involved in little discussions, but when it gets a bit too heavy, they often clear off. So that's a kind of sort of pastiche of the air energy. Then we've spoken about earth, which is very grounded in it. It doesn't tend to move too much. When it moves, you feel it, like in, an earthquake or something. But they tend to be very solid and grounded. And you know that you're in the company of an earth person or someone with a heavy earth energy, because I think you feel quite accepted and you don't have to put on any airs or graces. It's very easy to be very natural, to be your own self, and you slow down in the company when there's a lot of earth around you. You can slow right down because they don't move as fast as the fire and also the air signs. We've got, the Lyrid meteor shower was the one that I watched with Owen one night. That's fantastic. And we've got Nubianette. Hello, all made it today. Hey, nice to have you back. Owen saying, I'm also a water sign and I love to fish barefoot in the water. You like Huckleberry Finn? That's so nice. And we've got some hellos going on in the chat room. That's so nice. Colleen Murphy is, I'm a Pisces. I'm moving to Portugal and can't wait to be near the ocean. It grounds me and awes me as well. And I can't wait to view the stars and the moon over the ocean. Oh, well, that just sounds lovely. Oh, we've got Sarah here as well, who's also joining us from Portugal. Hi there, Sarah. So it's a right old loving, and there's a definite kind of Portugal theme here as well, I have to say. So anyway, let's have a look at these watery moon signs. So the water, as different from the fire energy, the very distinct earth energy and the air energy, water is kind of what you'd expect. It can be murky. If you think about the different kinds of water that we have like lakes, we have rivers, and we have oceans. And I would say the 3 different star signs actually represent different types of bodies of water. So for instance, the rivers, where you've got a nice gentle flowing water, tend to be quite clear and quite active. You know where they're going You're someone adding in and bogs as well. Yep, thank you. We do have that kind of water. I was thinking more in nature, but I guess we do have bogs. I'm guessing, are you talking about bogs as in like muddy, watery patches or actual toilets? It depends if you're American or English. It'd be an interesting distinction to make. Um, um, yes. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to talk about that because I think of them almost. So Akolu 21 is saying, I was told that Scorpio represents bogs. So like boggy ground. Yeah, I was going to compare them to a bit like a lake. For the same reason, actually, that it's water and Scorpio's a fixed sign. So the water doesn't move around in a lake, it's very, very stagnant. And as you get down into the depths of it, you'll find lots of silt and muck and all sorts. And I'll be talking about Scorpio energy in a second, but it can get quite yucky. And also, yeah, since people can fall in and die and decay, yep, absolutely. Water and muddy patches, definitely not toilets. That's great. Yep, can certainly see the lake. So we've got a similarity there. It's kind of water, it's unmoving, and it can get stagnant and it can get quite yucky. Lake is contained and thus structured like fixed sign of Scorpio. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And then we've got the ocean, which I think is really just like the Pisces energy. And I'll talk about that in just a sec. So let's bring up this. I got a lovely comment. Yup, silt and muck makes me think of ancient Egyptian vibes with Scorpio resonates with. Yeah, it does. Like the Nile. Now, I've not been to the Nile. Maybe someone else has been to the Nile. But yeah, if it's like that, I probably don't want to go. I don't really like mosquitoes very much. And I'm guessing if it's stagnant, there'll be a lot there. So let's bring this up then. So the moon in Cancer then, it's actually like each of the moon signs we've looked at, I've looked at what the ruling planet of that star sign is. And Cancer is actually ruled by the moon. So this is the moon in its kind of own sign. It's really quite comfortable in the sign of Cancer. And I would give it keywords like family, hearth, home. It's very, very intuitive. The moon is doing what it wants to do. So if you think about the moon, it changes its phase quite regularly. Like it moves every 2.5 days, and it goes from new moon to full moon positions, and it has eclipses and things like that. So if you think this is somebody that can hold a whole lot of emotion within one person, this is somebody who can really change their emotional status quite quickly, and they can be really fresh and emotional, in a empathic, charismatic, kind and caring way, and then they can get really histrionic and extremely sensitive, like the extreme sensitivity. If you think of a full moon energy, and how sensitive you might be at the full moon, it's like that. And anyone with a strong Cancer theme in their chart, like Owen and also my husband, you'll understand that sort of strength of emotion that can just tip you over the edge. And they can, to their credit, usually come back quite well. It's the first water sign and it's cardinal. Now, the cardinal, if you remember, we've got cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Cardinal is action. So it's like active emotions. So their emotions aren't still. Their emotions aren't hidden. Their emotions really come out. So, and they are really motivated by their feelings. So whatever they feel, they have to act on it soon after. Now, they're known for being strongly caring. And if you think of the crab, they are very protective and they will often hide away. So like the Cancerians, I think when they're having a hard time, if they've already exhausted standing up for themselves. In fact, actually, I think they're more likely to retreat first. And watching the crabs on the beach and watching my kids play with them and stuff, I can see what they do. They tend to go underneath the sand or underneath the stone. They go and hide somewhere first so they can kind of give themselves a bit more space. But when they are attacked, they go straight for it, and they've got some really defensive technology there. In their relationships, they're really loyal, trusting. They've got high EI, like emotional intelligence. They can sense what's going on. They'll go into a room and know exactly what's going on, and they'll be able to point out, like if you go into a room and you feel something, you're not sure quite where it's coming from, you ask your moon in Cancer person. In fact, that really goes for all three water signs, the moony water signs, but they will know what's going on for people, and they will feel it ahead of time, and they offer support. They really do want to support you. Now, in conflict, they defend, protect, but they also remember their pain history. And yeah, that's quite wise, I would say, to know if someone's hurt you before. Chances are they're going to try it again at some point. So I don't blame them for that. What I do know is they hold on to the pain, and that can cause them suffering, which ironically is a thing that they try and protect other people from. So in their caring desire to look after people and protect them from suffering, they often hold on to wounds for other people. And their super sensitivity, I think, can really cause them some conflict internally, mentally. So I think they suffer themselves from feeling too much. I really think that people with a strong moon in Cancer, or in fact any of the moon signs, you really need quite a grounding partner around, because when there's two of you in a relationship, it can it can become a bit of a contest to see, which one's suffering the most, and which one needs the support the most. And you might like support one through it, and then later you succumb to their own feelings because you're picking up on everything. And so you're taking it in turn, supporting each other. So I really recommend that you find yourself, with somebody who can understand your emotions, but can also balance them out a little bit, because it's quite tricky. Just going to see if there's anything coming in. Oh, this is interesting. The silt helps produce a harvest after flooding. That I love that, because that's really going to come into its own with the Scorpio thing. Because I think of Scorpio as being the compost heap of the zodiac, and I love compost. It's not like in a derogatory way. I think everything, all of life, comes from the decay and the breaking down of everything. So I'm looking forward to that. So Iberian is saying, "See you soon, Owen." There's a bit of a love fest there. Can't wait, my brother. Sometimes I can't come back from the water, but have got better. Cancers, we fight like a mother. They sure do. Also, their feelings go into attack for protection and security of loved ones mode. That's a really good point, actually. The sign of Cancer, like if we're going in much more deeper, they represent the fourth house in astrology, which is very much about the home, but also about the children. And they will absolutely fight to the death. They will absolutely go above and beyond for their kin. And so the moon in Cancer is usually absolutely wanting to be a parent at some time. In fact, I think that the same goes for all of the water moons. They usually want to become parents, and often the moon water signs have more children than others, because I don't know, they just kind of understand the childhood. There's a slight innocence, I would say, about the water signs. So anyway, moon in Scorpio, ruled by, there's two rulers, according to what type of astrology you like. There's the Mars, which most people know about the energy of, which is very yangy, quite defensive. And then and also really positive, really active, really likes to move, very motivated, very direct, and can get angry. And mainly because they get resistance when they're trying to move forwards. Then you've also got Pluto. Now Pluto is very much the badass of the solar system. Pluto's got a bad rep. Pluto's not an easy planet to work with, but I have to say, when you've had him go over your sun and other points of your chart, you'll realize that he actually brings the biggest gifts, because in the end, Pluto nearly always wins. I've not met anyone that's come off good from a Pluto transit without actually, what's the word? Surrender. Like it brings us to our knees at some level, and it makes us surrender and kind of give way. It's almost like an aspect within our charts that shows where we cannot have our will, where our absolute determination to have it our way ends up killing us. So I really think that Pluto, the big message of Pluto is surrender. So you've got these two messages within the moon sign. One is quite defensive, quite active, really determined to push on. And Pluto is very much about power and the power imbalance, so it teaches us a bit of respect about life, that sometimes we are not the most powerful thing, or that we have more power when we surrender to something. And that sometimes moving just out of the way, moving back, actually gives us a much better perspective. So you've got these really big epic themes, and then you're finding out, okay, Scorpio's a water sign, so they're emotional as well. So they're emotional and determined, and also, you know, really got some kind of to death do us part kind of feelings. So I would say they are like the pathological transformers of the zodiac, the moon in Scorpio people. You know, Scorpios are anyway, and then people with like a Scorpio ascendant tend to have that. But the moon in Scorpio really epitomizes this. It's a second water sign, it's fixed. So their feelings are rigid, and they're really powerful. And so if you think about rigid emotion, it gets guarded. And like a Kolu 21 and I were sort of discussing, I loved her liking it to a bog. You know, you've got this stagnant water. And, you know, at one level, it just looks like a muddy puddle, and most people don't want to look at the darkness. Most people don't want to dive in. But if you get right to the bottom, that's where the nutrition is. That's where the best plants grow. And it is very much like compost. Old patterns are decaying and new ones can be born from them. So it's really great. But emotionally, if we're not prepared to transform our emotions, if we're talking stagnant emotions, we also get some really quite foul emotions as well. Jealousy being one of them. And that is also attributable to the moon in Cancer people as well. You get a bit of that, and possessiveness. But the Scorpios in particular in their moon sign can be quite resentful. Now, emotionally, they're really loyal. They tend to be absolutely unswerving. But don't mess with them because they have like the Scorpio sting in the tail, and that's how you see it in a chart. There's the moon, there's Scorpio. They've got some defensive maneuvers just like Cancer. In relationships, they can sometimes, if they decide that they don't want to be all powerful and kind of dominant, you know, they've actually got quite a lot of pathological and psychological skills. I was talking to a lovely astrologer. In fact, I was talking to two lovely astrologers today, and doing some interviews with them. And they've both got Scorpio. We've all got Scorpio ascendant. And one of them described herself. She said, you know, in my younger days, I could sense the fears of other people, and I would know how to destroy them with their fears. And so, you know, the Scorpio energy carries that seed of revenge and being able to get to the core of what would really hurt and kind of stick the finger in. So you don't really want to fall out with them. But when they go too far, you might find that they can be sacrificing, you know, and they'll put everything on the line, and they'll kill themselves. They'll try and kill someone else or kill themselves, but everything, just nothing is black. Nothing is in shades of gray here. You know, it's really full on or it's full off. And in conflict, like I said, they can get really nasty and they'll take everyone down with them. And I've put in gas to represent gaslighting, but also that they can fill the room with one of their moods if they, you know, have this real sense of, you know, if they're in that real kind of destructive mind frame. Now, they also tend to have rigid thinking, which can create like festering wounds, not necessarily actual skin wounds, but it's what's going on underneath. So I think they really need to watch where they're being rigid in their thinking and absolutely let it go, because it festers. You know, they'll mull it over again, and it will just get entrenched. So I think they really need to let go of that. That's why I'm saying, you know, it's important just to really let go and surrender. And that's the Pluto energy. It's almost like people with moon in Scorpio, their emotions are so strong that they are driven to distraction with them until they can surrender to them. But in that surrender comes a huge transformation. So I really think the energy of Scorpio is taking one for the team, because they're processing the darkness that nobody else wants to process. So they feel all the other games that other people are playing, and they'll call it out. You know, they'll bring out those patterns. They're unafraid to go into the silt. And I love them for it. I absolutely do. They are fearless, really fearless. And we're getting some more comments. And I'm not surprised, because we've all got an ex like that, or even a husband like that, or a dad or whatever. So we've got some more comments coming in from people that know. So Akolu 21 is the decay equals the dirt of Taurus, season for growth. Thank you. Yeah. And that's the polarity. That's one of the conversations I was having today is, you know, they will pick up on what other people aren't admitting to. So, you know, Taurus, anything that they're not dealing with themselves, that, you know, Taurus and Scorpio are in polarity to each other. So they are helping to work through that. I really love that. And right now we've got the North Nodes, which is another story, which we'll be talking about another time, but we've got the karmic points, the nodes, and they are in Scorpio and Taurus. And on the 5th next week, we've got the lunar eclipse, which will really bring up that Scorpio energy, a Scorpio Taurus energy. Nubinet, that's so my ex. He was afraid of needing me too much. Yeah, that would really drive him up the wall. Being there, rigid thinking as a Scorpio has resulted in mental health wounding. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And I'm a Scorpio with my natal Pluto in Scorpio and Mercury. Yeah, so you get it, you understand it, and no doubt you've looked at the darkness yourself. You know, I've got Uranus on my ascendant, and when I have my Uranus return and my progress moon on my ascendant, all of the old stuff that I'd hidden, everything in my sort of unconscious mind that had been suppressed, it all came up like this horrible septic thing. It was gross. But it clears the mind body system. And I also think a lot of the water moon signs, I think they also process energy for everyone, not just themselves, and not just in their relationships necessarily, but they take one for the team, the collective human team, because they're so psychic. They really are intuitive and they really pick up on a lot. And yes, other signs do too, but the waters really do. They do seem to do it so much more. So all in a stellium near my sun, I know the Pluto vibes well. You really do. Bless you. Sarah's saying, I dated a Scorpio once. Needless to say, I'll never forget it. And that was 25 years ago. Wow. Can you imagine, you know, like dating someone that you're remembering 25 years later? That's quite a guy. Living on the edge. Yes. Scorpio will maintain the course even to their own detriment just to be right and win. Yeah, I love that. And it's a really good phrase. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And I have met some Scorpio energy where they transform that. But yes, often they don't, especially if they're betrayed. Moon in Scorpio is in the fall. Yes, that's true. I haven't actually spoken about this yet, but basically moon is not very comfortable in the sign of Scorpio. And I would say that's probably one of the reasons is because there's such strong emotions to carry, you know, so that it's just not a comfortable position, according to the dignitaries. We'll talk about that another day. Where did Akolu 21 come from? Feel Good Astro is reaching the parts other astrologers cannot reach. She's very welcome to join us. So I'm really pleased that you're adding in. It's fantastic. Penny Albertella, one sister with DIL, daughter-in-law, moon in Scorpio, daughter Scorpio, sun. Yeah, so you're understanding that Scorpio energy too. Right, let's move on to the last sign, and this is moon in Pisces. And so this is the changing, like this is the third water sign and it's mutable. So it's a lot more changing. And I liken this a bit to the ocean. You know, it's really, really deep. You don't know exactly where the edges of it are, which really accounts for the fact that it's really unboundaried in the sign of Pisces. And the sign of Pisces is said to be ruled by Jupiter and also Neptune. Now, Jupiter is a planet of expansion, which we've mentioned before. So it's always about growth, and it can also inflame things. It's always making things bigger, and it's quite hopeful and spiritual, which is all fine and dandy. Neptune is really creative, and I always think of Neptune as being a planet that kind of encourages you to lose yourself somehow. So when it's been positively expressed, I really see it as being like merging with the infinite. Like, so you get a lot of Piscean energy where people are wanting to merge with the big consciousness and all that. And then on its negative, I really think that like a negative sort of vibration of Neptune is very much, I want to lose me. I want to kind of lose sense of who I am. And so you get a lot of like drugs and alcohol and anything that takes you outside of your body and helps you forget who you are in that moment. So there's a lot of deception there, but there's high levels of creativity and being able to see reality from a whole different perspective. So you can see just with the rulers of the actual signs, you know, you can have a really different feel. But we're still talking about the energy of water and the moon, which is about our emotions, our psyche, our intuitions and stuff. And the words that really came to mind here were sacrificial lamb and innocent. But I want to add in a few extra ones because moon in Pisces really doesn't appear to be defensive in as much as the Cancerians have got their claws, their nippers, and Scorpio have got some of those, and also their poisonous tail. However, the moon in Pisces, which is symbolized by the two fish swimming in other directions, is so apt actually, because they're really hard to pin down. And so their defense is to hide, their defense is to confuse, their defense is to bend the truth. And, you know, you can be all romantic about it and say, yeah, they're flowing, they're empathic, they're dreamy, they're really psychic, they'll pick up everything. And yet, if you're with them for any length of time, you may well feel like they're escaping reality and making you take responsibility for it. So yes, they might appear quite kind of kittenish at times and in need of protection. It almost doesn't feel like they're meant to be in this world. It doesn't feel like they have the kind of means to be able to make sense of the Western world. And, you know, to some extent, that I see some truth in that. They are deeply sensitive. And they are very delicate, but I think they can be seen as a bit wet. You know, they can be a bit too loving. They can be a bit too much. So they'll overdo it and they won't know where their boundaries start and end. So you might get somebody that's overflowing with love and appreciation, even for somebody who really doesn't deserve it. You know, they'll put people on a pedestal and serve that. And I think that's just really unhealthy. So I think you see a lot of codependency with moon in Pisces, and I'm talking as one myself. And their relationships, they can be really one-sided, you know, and they live in a dream. They'll distract themselves, and they're not always that faithful either. You know, they will, if they're not cheating in their imagination, they may well, you know, do it. And all that is, as far as I can see, because I think moon in Pisces people are really generous and really kind. And I don't think any moon in Pisces person would deliberately want to cheat on another, because we can feel what that might feel like. And yet, I think the difficulty for them to own up to what they're feeling and to really articulate where they are, given that they're swimming off in different directions, they're unboundaried, they just don't know who they are. And it's not much of a defense, but I think they are, I think they confuse themselves and then get caught up in a bit of a web of deception. So they can be a bit tricky. You know, you've got to be really clear. And the best thing you can do to support somebody with moon in Pisces is help them articulate their emotions, to get really clear, to find clarity in what they're feeling. So like if you've got a moon in Pisces child and they're, you know, having a reaction, you might want to help them find the words to describe it so that in the future they know what's going on, you know. And they never really know if what they're picking up on is theirs. In a different way to Cancer, I think the moon in Cancer people can know that that person over there is resentful or that person over there is angry. Whereas the moon in Pisces people, there's like this transference, there's no boundaries. So they'll pick up on that resentful person and they'll carry it as if it's their own. So there's a lot of weird stuff going on there. And conflict, they avoid conflict like the plague. You know, it's hard to pin down. They can be deceptive. Now, one word that is really, I think, works for all three of these is guilt. So they all play guilt games. And they're all guilt throwers and all very good guilt catchers. I would say moon in Pisces are very good at catching guilt, but then they play the victim and guilt people by pretending to be weaker than they are, you know. So it's a downward guilt spiral. And if you know somebody with a moon in Pisces, the best thing you can do is help them out of the guilt cycle. You know, show them that, you know, when they're like playing with guilt, they're making themselves and the other person, they're putting people into sacrifice. And when one person's in sacrifice, you can never have an equal or strong relationship. So I really see that's a difficulty. And in terms of their health, they have psychic illnesses. So, and I would say this in particular for all three of the water moon signs, is to watch out for things like autoimmune disorders and depression, which may or may not be to do with unhealed emotions that just couldn't be fathomed out. I really like the work of German New Medicine. And for me, I found that I've been able to resolve a lot of things. And German New Medicine will talk about how we either get ill because of an accident, through poisoning, or through an unhealed shock where we feel isolated. And that is really something that all of the moon signs really play with. And yeah, when they lose their sense of reality, they just cannot see how to get beyond it. They get completely blindsided and almost just a bit like somebody just drowning in the ocean. They just they just give up and kind of disappear. So the moon in Pisces, I remember when I first picked up a book about the moon signs, and I was horrified when I first read it because it was so maligned. It was like, this is a terrible sign to have your moon in. Don't do it, as if you could change it. You know, you'll be a drunk and a drug taker and this, that, and the other. It was written, I think, in the 1970s, so it's heavily biased. So I think there's a lot of support that we can give the water moon signs a lot. You know, we really need to support them. They are very delicate. In ways that you may not find when we were looking at like the earth, the air, and the fire. So let's just have a look at the last couple of comments. And we've got Penny. Oh, you've already said that. So you've got some Scorpio. And you've got a granddaughter with Pisces moon. So you'll understand that, how delicate she is and how she needs to be reinforced and sort of validated. So anyway, that's the end of quite a busy week talking about moons. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about next week, but I think maybe what I'd like to start with is, seeing as a lot of the people that we're working, like a lot of people that are joining me for this show, I think maybe I'll show you how to set up your birth chart on astro.com, take it right back to the beginning so that you can create your own chart, and then maybe day by day show you something else, something new to help you interpret it and help you see it from a different perspective. But if you are watching this show and you absolutely do like to learn and whatnot, let me know what you'd like me to cover and I will cover that. Like I said, today I've been interviewing or chatting with other astrologers and creating some content to feed into some of these shows as well. So there we go. Got a couple more comments. Just wanted to let you know that I filled out your survey, but the website was down at the time. So hoping you received it. Look forward to your reading. Namaste. Okay, well, I will. You know what? I heard this morning my website was down, and it's back up now because I spoke to our web hoster. So I'm really sorry about that. But if you drop me an email, Colleen, then I can we can catch up, and I would really like that. Penny saying it's been fascinating, Louisa. Thank you so much. Oh, nice city. How are you? How's your little one? Thank you, Louisa. Thank you so much for joining me. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here because I know you've got a bit of Scorpio going on there as well. So anyway, thanks for joining me this week. Again, if you want to have your chart looked at on the show on Sundays, I look at three different people's charts and give a little bit of an interpretation. And also on Sunday, it's a bumper session, and I will also be doing a week ahead forecast. So anyway, thanks for joining me. And I hope to see you again real soon. Have a great weekend and catch you on Sunday. Bye for now.